Okay, so I've gathered a bunch of more data and crunched a bunch of numbers. Last test that I ran, I don't think my sample size was big enough, as well as there were some complaints from people who are probably a lot more knowledgeable than me that my LT32 load was not at max anyways, even though Hodgson says that that is a max for a 73 grain ELD. And if you go to Hornady's load data, they place the 73 grain ELD, the 75 grain hollow point boat tail, and several other bullets all in the same loading data. So we're not going to argue about that, just that when I get close enough to max, it's close enough. But for guys that are really, really crunching, thousands of PSI, trying to get, really split hairs, then it matters. I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter. Just it's splitting hairs a little more than I think is necessary. But I've gone ahead and upped the LT32 charge to 21.3 grains. And I predicted last time that at 21.0 grains that I was right at the cusp of max. I still had round primers, but I didn't have anything weird, no anomalous heads. But at 21.3 grains, you can see every single head has a brass flow into the ejector orifice. And then when the bolt rotated, you can see that brass flow was, scraped and pushed up. So there's evidence of brass flows on every single head, not just on a few of them. It's on every single head has a brass flow. And I'll just give you a good look at all of these. You'll have to excuse my dog having a dream on the floor here. So, but I predicted I was very close to max before, and I predicted that this 0.3 of a grain would push me well over max with this fast of a powder. And so if there was any doubt before, there shouldn't be any doubt now. I lost 2 pieces of brass. This was, what did we shoot? We shot 20 rounds of each, so I've lost some of my brass at the range. It's just kind of the way it goes there. My small AR doesn't fit a brass catcher because it's got a backup iron where my brass catcher would go. So that's the heads for the LT32 loads. And here we're going to go to the heads for, this is the StaBall Match loads. And I mixed all this brass up. This is stuff that I just had loaded up, sitting on the shelf, ready to shoot plinker, long-range plinking ammo. And so I went ahead and separated this stuff into what seems to be more normal looking heads with just some, these are what I consider to be my personal max. And I told the internet that this load was not max because the published max for this stuff is 25.3 grains of StaBall Match. And I'm at 25.0, and I'm there. I am right there at max. Now this on the left, most of these I was able to pick up round by round, and these were out of my 18-inch rifle length gas AR that also had a rifle length buffer and receiver extension and spring in it. And I really, really got some more brass flow out of that gun than I did out of my 11.5-inch carbine. It's pretty interesting. I really didn't expect my pressure to maintain maximum for that much longer, just based off of that change. But more on that later, basically. And then I'm assuming that most of these are the heads from the 11.5-inch gun. And they've all got a tiny bit of brass flow, a little shiny spot, not near what the rifle length one was, not quite where the LT32 was, where every single head out of whichever rifle had a little brass flow. Someone mentioned primer cratering to me, and I'm having a hard time seeing any, and I didn't see any in the last round, but the brass had already been processed, decapped, and sized. So, but primer cratering isn't really a big issue. I had a bolt that cratered primers really bad. It was an Anderson bolt, and it just probably had a very loose primer orifice, and it didn't hurt anything. I didn't puncture any or anything like that. So also, since these were just loaded up, laying around plinker ammo, I ran out. I was trying to use up a partial box of CCI number 41s, and so I finished it up with some about 40-year-old CCI 450s, and you'll see in the velocity data that I couldn't tell which was which by reading the velocity data. So I went ahead and arranged them here, and I don't think it made much of a difference. So we'll start by talking about the 18-inch versus the 11.5-inch data. And I'll try and arrange this stuff here so that you can see. I've kind of given up on trying to get high tech because it annoys me, and I don't think people care anyways. They just want the data. So here we've shot the 11.5-inch gun. This is the LT32 load. So this is an Ammo Inc. brass. It's head stamped AUSA. This is with CCI 450 primers, all of it. This is a 75 grain Rocky Mountain Reloading hollow point boat tail that I'm using. So, it comes back to, again, like I used various load datas to come up with my charge weights here. And, with my shooting of this bullet and figuring out where my max was with two other powders, Hornady load data works pretty well. And it's actually, a little bit lower charge weights required than the Hornady. Like, it's got a little bit longer of an ogive profile, I think. And also, my seating depth to get decent groups had to go in quite a bit, where Hornady, I pretty much load them at max length, and these I load a little short. But, for a guy who doesn't have a drilled and tapped chamber and has no way of gathering actual pressure data, I'm going off of, various loading datas and, heads, primers, matching velocities in data to try and figure out where max is. So that's part of why, when I'm running Gordon's reloading tool or PMax, or even listening to other people give me quick load data, it doesn't always come out because there's no way for me to map the exact dimensions of this bullet to put it in to Gordon's, or not enough data. So it's a lot of guessing. They're hopefully what most people would consider to be educated guesses, because I err on the side of caution. I get pretty close with just basic algebra on predicting velocity curves, and I haven't blown anything up yet. So hopefully that speaks to my care and also the precision that we try to achieve when guessing where maximum is going to be with so many unknowns. But back to the data, the 11.5-inch gun, A 20 shot average velocity was 2,341 feet per second with LT32. Had a standard deviation of 17, and this group was 2.39 MOA. So not awful. This gun, it doesn't matter really what I shoot out of it. It shoots pretty much the same, like more than acceptable, and just kind of pumps them in there. I've got a few loads that it shoots just absolutely sub MOA, but even the garbage, it seems to shoot pretty good, I think, because that barrel's really short and rigid. Okay, now for the 18-inch gun, same exact load, Ammo Inc. brass, CCI 450. We had an average velocity of 2,641 feet per second and a standard deviation of 26, and this all shot 2.03 MOA, which that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that load, because these bullets pretty much didn't matter what powder I put behind them or how I tweaked the seating depth. They didn't get a whole lot better. If you look on RMR's website, they're kind of an experimental bullet, and I'm just glad that they sell them for the price that they sell them for. I'm not trying to build a piano out of them. I just want something that shoots about this good, that's 75 grains or heavier, you know, a heavy for caliber bullet that's not 26 cents a piece. So we'll go ahead and move on with the StaBall Match, and we'll jump straight to the 18-inch gun, because we've gathered that we were at 2,641 feet per second here with a max charge of LT32, and we're at 2,640 with what by the heads looks like a pretty close to max charge of StaBall Match. So we've got 2,640 feet per second average, a standard deviation of 13, and this all went into approximately 3 MOA, 2.96 MOA. Not particularly surprised. I thought that I would get a little more velocity out of the slow powder, but I also don't think that I was pushing this at, like, this is right at max, and these were obviously over max. I'll do some case head measurements, but I'm pretty sure these brass are all going to have to get thrown away. This was absolutely over max pressure, and these are flirting with max. I'm on my third loading of most of this stuff, and probably by loading number 4, the heads are going to be stretched out and I can't use them again. So these are flirting with max, but not over. Maybe over, I wouldn't know. Not over for my uses, but just right there. Not a plinker load, not something you're going to get 10, 20 loadings out of, but close. So for the StaBall Match loads out of the short gun, we got an average velocity of 2333 and a standard deviation of 14, and this all went into 2.38 MOA, which if you look up here, this group is 2.39 MOA. This group is 2.38 MOA. I'll pan out a little bit and you guys can see that, like, although this is 2.38 MOA, these two groups are not the same. My best 18 shots went into 1.32 MOA, which that's very, very good for this cheap plinker load. So as you can see, these two groups, I mean, that's one flyer here, 2 flyers here. Other than that, that's a one-holer of 20 rounds. And this one kind of was trying to group them all in there, but it just couldn't quite get the consistency there. Part of this is bullet specific. The way these bullets are manufactured, they've got a little donut up towards the me-plat of the bullet, and they said that their bullet machine isn't supposed to be able to manufacture a bullet this long, but they kind of did some tinkering and tweaked it and made it do it. But so the seating stem of my die presses right there, and so no matter what I seem to do with them, I get weird cartridge base to ogive measurements, and so I'm thinking that it's there where the inconsistency is being caused, but I don't know any way to make a seating stem that'll not harm the bullets, but that doesn't contact it in that point. So I'm not going to mess with it. It's just good enough for what it is, and the bullets are so cheap. We're not complaining. It's just a reason why I get some inconsistency there. But so to compare, we got 2333 out of the slow powder. This stuff is burn rate Varget, pretty close to max. And we got 2341 out of super fast powder, like nearly the fastest powder that they will give you load data for this heavy of bullets for. To put it in perspective, 4198, I could not find load data for this heavy of bullets. I was going to put it in here, but I couldn't find load data, and I'm too inexperienced with the powder. The math I was doing was unpredictable, and I didn't trust it, and so I didn't load any of it up. So this is the fastest powder I can find load data for, and this is on the slower end of the 223 burn rate powders. It's not the slowest. Like I say, I've got CFE 223, which is, as far as I know, the slowest commonly used 223 powder. I am going to run this test with a max charge of CFE, and it's going to be screaming fast. Like, we're going to be in the 18-inch gun, we're going to be close to 2,800 feet per second compared to 2640. We're going to be cooking. I mean, screaming fast. And we will see. I feel like it'll be nearly final what it does in the small gun, because this is so bordering on identical, although this is overpressure and this is like right at max pressure. Like, if I put them both at max, the differences in velocity are well within standard deviations of each other. There were many shots of this that were of lower velocity than this, and many shots of this that were of lower velocity than this. The average is so close to identical, it's negligible. Another caveat to remember is that my chronograph is light dependent. It is not just a velocity measuring device. It has the little hood over the top. It was a cloudy day. I got different velocity readings this time with the same exact loads than I got last time. I get different velocity readings, whether it's sunny outside or not. Sunny days, I get higher readings. Cloudy days, I get lower readings. Obviously, there are temperature differences as well, but sometimes the ammo is coming to ambient temperature and then still getting a higher reading when the sun pokes out. What I'm trying to say is that it's unpredictable, and with my particular chronograph, it has much, much more to do with the light that's on the thing day to day than it has to do with the temperature of the ammo. So this chronograph needs to somewhat be taken with a grain of salt, which is why every time I gather velocity data, I try to put a control in. That's what the StaBall is doing here, is that I've got velocity readings with this load across a pretty wide range of weather and temperature. So that being said, there's one more thing to add to this video that isn't related, but it was an interesting finding, which was this is with the 75 grain black tips, and I just was sighting in the 18-inch rifle with it because that rifle formerly did not have a rifle length buffer and a rifle stock and a rifle length buffer spring in it. And so I was just going to sight it in. So I shot a group of 5 here, made an adjustment, shot a group of 5 here, came to, made one click down, came to shoot a group of 10, and it just looked so bad. And normally this ammo shoots about like 1.5 MOA, and so it just looked so bad that I decided to try throwing the carbine buffer lower back on. And I had taken that lower and put a heavy buffer spring in it, and then put an H2 buffer in it. And I shot it, and I shot a 10-shot group that was 1.43 MOA, that's how that rifle usually shoots this ammo, is about 1.5 MOA. And so the 10-shot group just kind of tightened right in there. And so that's something I've not heard of before, but I mean, barrel harmonics are a thing, so it makes sense. It had started to rain, so I had pulled my chronograph in because this was going to be my other control. Was just gathering some data off of this ammo. Needless to say, the carbine length buffered lower is going to stay on that rifle because I value precision and accuracy way more than I value a set of build characteristics or whatever. I thought that the rifle length, everything would cause the gun to be smoother and also to shoot more accurately. But that was not the case. It did neither of those things. As a matter of fact, it had the opposite effect. You can see that with the rifle length buffer in there, I think it's something about the period of high pressure. With high pressure curves and pressure curves, we call the pressure itself, and then there's something called period. It's the duration of overpressure felt by a certain part. And so I think something with the period of that pressure caused it to be way harder on case heads. And then when the gas did open the gun, you can see on these really bad case heads, I just picked one at random from the rifle side, and it's got a pretty bad flow. It has it's got a pretty bad spot there. I just picked it off now. But on these, on the opposite side of that flow, you can literally see where the extractor has bent the head up a tiny bit. So not only did it extend the period that this could flow brass into the ejector orifice, but also then when it opened up to cycle, it really, really jerked on those. And the carbine, the 11.5-inch carbine gassed gun, there's where the brass flow is, and the amount that the case head has been pulled is negligible. As a matter of fact, you can see that I got mixed up. I started looking here and was going, oh, maybe it looks like something, when the actual point is right here at the REM. So kind of opposite to what we've been told. Granted, that carbine system has a H3 buffer in it, but it also has a light buffer spring, and it's just contrary to what we've been told. So that's it. Been getting pretty dry around here. Sorry about that. I'm kind of trying to focus in on these couple of projects. I'll try and edit this down shorter. If anybody's interested in this data, it doesn't really seem like anybody is, but if anybody's interested, I've got quite a bit of paper data stacked up, quite a bit of load data stacked up. And if anybody's just trying to get theirself started, I can hook you up with a lot of at least don't go past here type information. So thanks for coming out.